Okay, next we need to talk about what we need to do when we're using credit. We're going to need to pay attention to the interest rate. For credit cards, the interest rate is relatively high. You know, a normal credit card is going to have an interest rate somewhere around about 20%, and even a so-called low-rate credit card will have an interest rate above 10%. Okay, there's two important concepts that people need to know if they're going to use a credit card. The first one that everybody needs to know is the idea of the grace period. If you are using a credit card, and if the balances in the credit card are paid off in full at least once a month, then we can say that credit card is said to be in the grace period. That means there's no interest being charged at all on that credit card. This is the absolute best way to use a credit card. Now, some people pay off their credit card more often than once per month to keep that balance down and to make sure that they are always able to reduce the balance all the way down to zero. And if they're doing that, then obviously they're staying in the grace period. And this is the single best way to use a credit card. Let's take a little bit of a look at things that damage credit. First off, let's talk about late or missed payments. If we're talking about only one late or missed payment, it's typically not really that big of a deal. However, one or more during the same year can be very costly and can trigger consequences. These consequences can include things like the interest being increased. If you're on a low interest rate card, it's going up to that 20% level. Your limits could be lowered. There could be damage to your credit score. If you get far enough behind, the account could be sent out to a collection agency. Okay, you'll recall that I said that the grace period is a really great thing. The opposite of staying in the grace period is just making minimum payments. Credit card issuers will give cardholders the option to pay just a low minimum payment, typically calculated as a percentage of the balance. This may seem like a very good idea, since the payment is very low relative to the balance. It's often a $10 or $20 payment. The problem is that it will take a very, very long time to pay off the balance if you're making just minimum payments, because the minimum payment is mostly just interest that is being paid, leaving most of the balance to continue into the future. So just remember this, making just minimum payments is the wrong way to use a credit card. On the subject of high-cost credit and high-cost, high-interest rate loans, I'll tell you that I've pulled this information that you're looking at on this slide. I've pulled it from the website of a Canadian organization. It is actually a Toronto-based organization. I'm not going to name them. However, I'll tell you that they're in the business of offering credit to people who have damaged credit. And so they will offer loans to people. However, the interest rates are extremely high. And what they often don't reveal, unless you do the math, is how much it's actually going to cost if you borrow money from these organizations. Now, this particular organization does target, in my opinion, does target people who are in the 18 to 35 age group. Their website is very, very mobile phone friendly. It's possible to take a $5,000 loan, as we're looking at here. You can qualify for and get a $5,000 loan without much trouble. But now let's take a look at how much that $5,000 turns into when we're dealing with high interest rate loans. So as you can see, I think you'll admit that that is an awful lot of money to pay to get a $5,000 loan.